Hey y'all, welcome back to the Brianna Approved Podcast. We have an exciting guest today. We have Gena Bradshaw, holistic health and energy coach and a 2-time cancer survivor. Gena not only is a 2-time cancer survivor, but she is also an author and has written a book on it. And she's written another book, a journaling prompt, which we'll get into today, and has a podcast called the Holistic Human Performance Podcast, where I actually was a guest on it, which was really fun. It was such an honor. But what I love about Gena's podcast is that she really does have interesting guests, and they talk about everything from combining science and holistic health and really just helping you kind of live a more holistic lifestyle. Gena's background is also very interesting. She has a BS in exercise science and is also a certified function strength coach, a functional movement screen practitioner, precision nutrition, Reiki practitioner, sound healer practitioner, and then natural medicine and homeopathy certified. So we love a good alphabet soup behind the name. So many degrees. We love that. So Gena, welcome to the Brianna Approved Podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Ooh, I'm so excited. Thank you. Oh my God. I'm just like, I love talking to you. My soul like lights up.
No, when I was on your podcast, I feel like we became like Insta friends. I wish you lived closer, but I feel like I should just like come visit for the day because you're in New York, but you're
Long
in Long
Island.
Island.
You're in Jersey, right? We can
Yes, Long
Long Island.
Island.
We can make this work.
Yes, I leave at 5 a.m. and don't hit the traffic on the Long Island Express, but besides the point. But yeah, so what I love about you is that I feel like there's so many different parts of you. When I love following your Instagram page because it just feels really pure and there's always this sense of lightness and you can feel that. And I'm sure that's part of your training as a Reiki healer, but also I'm sure being, 2-time cancer survivor, but you have sort of, your Reiki holistic, what I call hippy dippy stuff, which I love and all my listeners love, but you have a lot of science and movement stuff. And then your podcast as well has great stuff. And so I know you have 2 books and I know I'm a huge prompt girl because I'm all about like, great, this sounds good in theory, but what can I do and what can I take away? So I know you have your daily journal, which I know people can get on your website, and it's about self-discovery, gratitude, growth. And so I want to start the show by asking, because again, I know this journal is meant to help people kind of live an intentional life. So what does living an intentional life mean to you? Or if somebody's like, that sounds cool, what would be a couple of steps for me to even be more intentional and kind of get aligned with living an intentional life?
That's such a great question because it's really important in order to, and again, this is part of my journey. Like, these are the things that I have personally learned. And I'm like, whoa, if I didn't know this, and you also have, an exercise background, and it's like one layer to it. Like, what's the overall layers of becoming and living actually daily, every single day, being intentional with your practices to before you go to sleep? What are those things are you doing to improve yourself? I always say, like, get 1% better every day. It's something that has ultimately just changed my life tenfold. And so intentional living, exactly what it means. It's how can we take those day-to-day steps to get to a better version of ourselves, feel better, and be like, oh, I don't have to be addicted to suffering. I don't have to be hustling 24 freaking 7. I mean, to be honest, like, who actually does want to live like that? I mean, I don't want to be, I love to work hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's what I'm telling people to do. It's all about cutting the white noise and getting focused on knowing yourself so well that you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is a non-negotiable. This is a boundary. And actually like embodying that in your physical being. Like, everyone, I always get this question, boundaries. Well, how do I make boundaries and things like that? And it's not that you have to say your boundaries. You don't have to verbalize them. You show them in your body language, in your the tone of which you speak. your essence is your energy. So when you walk into a room, people are like either going to be attracted to you or they're going to be running the other way. I'm sorry, like that's just what it is. And I think the more
Yes.
that we can lean into that and be a just be open. I always tell people like if you're not open, I'm not your girl. If you're not open to the other side and kind of like taking your head out of the sand and kind of looking up and be like, "Ooh, there's like another way to live." I'm not your girl. So, I know that was a long-winded way of
I love.
answering that, but yeah.
No, so spot on. I mean, I believe it was Tupac who said real recognizes real. And it's so true. The older you get, I talk to my brother about this all the time because I think as we get older, or people who embark on this quote self healing journey, there's this sense of, okay, I need to always do better and improve more and try this and try that. And so much of it is actually just becoming more of who you are. And I think it's through trying all these different masks on. And as you get more comfortable and understand this idea of vibrational resonance of like, oh, I'm around this person and I feel really good and I don't have to question that, or I'm around this person and I don't feel good. And so many times we just stay around and don't realize how it affects everything else in your healing modality. And I think especially when it comes to like holistic health, there's this part of people want to compartmentalize like, oh, I just healthy just means food, or it just means gym, or it just means mindset. And so much of it is all interconnected. And I'm sure, having the background that you do. And I wonder like how having had cancer twice has not only changed sort of your identity, but sort of your relationship with all of those kind of different modalities and how it kind of really does make a holistic person.
It's cool because again, becoming self-aware, you look back on your journey and without judgment. You're just looking back and you're like, oh, like I needed that to get to this, to get to that, and then make a right here and then go up there. And it's just like, oh, okay, observing from a different perspective. And, I look back on my life and you know what's crazy? This obviously was meant to be. I had my annual yearly oncology appointment today, like this morning. Yes. And so I'm celebrating 11 years cancer free. So like it's cool to be on here and yeah,
Yes.
and share, old me would have gotten so emotional and just like you grew up Italian. So it's kind of like this sense of like, and I'm like the oldest female of five. So contain your feelings, don't show emotions, stuff
Yeah.
it down. Um
Yeah.
tough it out, keep going. And there's a fine line between like what that is and resiliency, and finding that vulnerability is actually like the greatest strength that you could ever possibly have. And the more that I leaned into that, the more that things that no longer served me fell off, relationships that no longer served me fell off. And kind of just being open to that, just like, okay, I'm not going to overthink this. Like, you're not meant to be, this isn't meant to be. I wasn't meant to go down this route to put you on the actual path that you're supposed to be on, even if you don't consciously understand that in that moment, in that time. And so I look back and I'm like, okay, went to college, ran track and field, did the whole shebang, grew up in a family where we have literally it's over 35 years now, our family fitness business, Bradshaw Personal Fitness. And I literally thought I was going to be a part of that and we were going to open up a gym and like that was going to be my life. Nope, not happening. And if you were to ask me in college if I was, you would tell me, Jenna, you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z at age 31, I would laugh in your face. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I wasn't into it at that time. I wasn't open. And I was to a point, like more the holistic side, but then you get to like the spiritual wellness, and that's like a whole different ball game.
No,
Right?
absolutely.
It's so different.
It is so weird. I feel like again, so much of the of life is trying to white knuckle your way through things or control things. And I have also recently gotten to a place where if things are falling apart, I always say just let it. It's like the idea of if there's like a glass that's falling from your cabinet midway, you're gonna kind of hurt
Yeah.
yourself more if you're trying to catch it. And then there's there's shrapnel and it causes more damage. And it's weird because it's almost so freeing. I literally just had this conversation with my brother about this idea as whatever, call it whatever you want, universe, life takes things away and it feels like things are being taken away. It creates so much space for newness to ideas of that positive what if game that you didn't think about prior because you've got so hung up on this blueprint that you created in your head. And I think that emotional softness plays a role. And I do think upbringing, like Italian background, as we joked, it is true. Was there kind of an aha moment for you where something happened where you're like, because I remember I talk about this openly. Like I very candidly remember being like going to be in my 30s and I was like, I just can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending I don't care or that I'm so hard. And I'm actually quite sensitive and emotional. And so like I had kind of reached a breaking point. Was there sort of something for you that was like, all right, I gotta tap into this a little bit more?
100%. I'm curious, before I get into it, when's your birthday? What sign are you? What zodiac sign are you?
I'm an
Oh, water
Aquarius.
sign. I'm a Cancer. We're just emotional beings.
Yes. Yes. No, I'm an emotional gangster,
I
I
love
say all the time. Like I am I act really tough, but I am not. I'm a sensitive ass bitch, as Cardi B said.
it. I feel that on so many levels. So same. It's like you have all these emotions, and it's not like I outwardly, to other people, it was more internalized, and it did get to a point where I was getting migraines all the time. I just like wasn't on my A game. Like I just didn't feel clear in my mind. So when I was 20, I had that experience of going through thyroid cancer, which by the way, I that was like the first like awakening where it's like, okay, there's something more than just exercise and nutrition, because I grew up healthy, dude. Like farm to table style
Mhm.
eating, outside playing in dirt, eating dirt, like just rough
Yeah.
and tumble sports. So it wasn't like we weren't unhealthy. That's when it was like, okay, peel the layer back. So I went through that experience. I was 20, about to be 21, going into my senior year. And I was like, all right, I don't understand this. I couldn't totally conceptualize it, but I was like, okay. So I started like looking into like herbs and more apothecary style living, um, clean water, plant. Like then you go down the rabbit hole, and you're like, everything is a lie. And then it just opens up
Mhm.
to a whole new world. And so it's interesting because the process at which I went through schooling, certifications, I look back and that's like the time frame of like how much more open I was and diving down. That was
Mhm.
like where I was at. That's how I was feeling when I got those certifications, because I was curious about how could I help myself. And people need to learn this. And so how can I, so going back to integrating, it's one thing to have a certification and go to schooling, but like it's another to actually apply it to your life and actually integrate it, embody it, like we were speaking of before. And so even then, like I wasn't like totally open, but I was like, okay, like I'm intrigued into like energy medicine and those types of healing modalities, because like I gotta stay sane, dude. Like I don't know, I used to, when I was laying up in bed, I was visualizing myself like healthy, healed, whole. But that wasn't like taught. That was just something that like kind of came to me. And I'm like, okay, there's
Mhm.
something to this. Placebo effect, call it whatever you want. But either way, going into it, your mind doesn't know the difference between what's going on in your mind, in your thoughts, and like your external world. So I'm
Mhm.
honing into it. And then I was in corporate America, working in a big box gym, doing all the things and working like so many freaking hours. And I was just like tired. I'm like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And it was something inside of me that was like, okay, let's explore some different avenues here instead of just fitness and nutrition and metabolic stuff. And that's where I kind of like was like, all right, let me try Reiki. And I started with Reiki and I got certified, freaking loved it. Like it genuinely, everyone's like, I don't understand like what it is. It's universal life force energy. Everything and anything is energy, and we're all attached by energy. And so started taking a deeper dive into that. And, today I kind of just take it all together. But I will say what prompted me and kickstarted everything was when it was 2020, all the COVID stuff was going on. I had an annual checkup and they had found a nodule on the right side of the thyroid, which I have half of my thyroid. Okay. Thyroidectomy. I still have half. Fun fact, you can function on 1/3 of your thyroid if you take care of yourself. That's what I've been doing. No medication, no radioactive iodine, nothing. And so freaked me the hell out. I literally had a panic attack in the doctor's office, the oncology room, and I went to my car, I was hysterically crying, and in that moment I just the sense of peace washed over me, and then it was a thought that popped up into my mind, you're gonna write a book about your story. I'm like, what? And then it kind of opened up the doors from there. I would say the biggest key though is when you get those intuitive nudges to follow them. A lot of people ignore it. And that's how I got to where I'm at today.
Yes. I love that. Yes, they say it's pebbles from the universe, little whispers. And if you don't listen, you'll eventually get a boulder to the head. And so many times we just don't listen when we should be. But I love that you got into it through your own pathway. And I'm always really big on build your health toolbox. Crying is a tool, Reiki is a tool, herbs are a tool, right? But I think you have to also know what stage of building am I at? And so I do say to some people, especially if you're a practitioner and you're working with clients, you can't from day one be like, hey, you're coming from super conventional thinking, which is fine. We don't want to health bully anybody. And then be like, but by the way, try some of these crystals and rocks, right? Because there's so many healing modalities. And I think nutrition and fitness seem to be the lowest hanging fruit for people, but there are a lot of options. So do you for you personally, have a sort of modalities hierarchy, or what's your favorite, or how do you start to integrate that either with yourself or when you're working with people, or even kind of try to, explain that to people of here's all the options we have, but for now, let's start with this. What's your kind of modality hierarchy?
So pretty much how I figure out that process with people and how I figured it out with myself. I'm okay, I'm looking at the concept of holism and how everything is interconnected, mind, body, soul. And so my own methodology, I broke it up into 5 components: the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and energetic bucket. So I split it up into 5 buckets. And how I break this down to people is, okay, what bucket is overflowing? What bucket is empty? And which bucket is even keeled? Cool, we got this. I'm good. What are you already integrating? And that is how I start the process with people. If you're someone who is getting 0% of physical activity and you live a sedentary life, get your ass up and start moving. That's where we're starting. Go walk around the block, get outside. That's how I do it. And then we break it down from there because, like you said, we can't health bully. And when you give someone too many options, they're confused, and then they can't make an option. They can't choose what they want. So we just take it step by step by step by step. And I also explain to people, this is a process. You are investing in yourself. If you do not want to take full responsibility for yourself, I'm not your girl. Point blank, simple, end of story. So that's kind of
No, I put things in buckets like that too. I think the bucket theory for people visually makes sense. I talk a lot about stress bucket, inflammation bucket. I know people talk about histamine bucket. I would imagine the energy bucket for some people, probably not the people that are working with you, right? By the time they find you, they're looking for something different a lot of the times. But if somebody came to you and they were working and they said, "Oh, my energy bucket is pretty empty or imbalanced," what does that mean for somebody, and what does an energy bucket protocol look like for a beginner or somebody who, to them, that feels kind of nebulous and they're like, what is an energy bucket?
So I like to ask them kind of to tap into their energy. I'll bring them through this and I'll ask them to just take a deep breath in. Let's chill. Let's see where you're at. and then kind of ask them to tell me in this state of like a meditative state, basically, what is their energy like? Are you filled with life force energy? Are you drained? Like, what's your energy battery? Where are you at on that scale? And if someone cannot determine that, that is also obviously where we need to start, where I kind of explain to them what energy actually is. It's our essence, it's our being. And again, like you said in the beginning, it's someone who kind of has an understanding of what this actually means. And then I go into the human, right? So we have a human anatomy and physiology system. We also have a human energy system. And so I kind of take a deep dive into educating them on the chakra system, right? Root to crown, how that goes up your spinal cord, okay, into your brain. And so for that, then and by the way, all of these different modalities and tools all flow into one another. So if you're someone who wants to get on that, right, we're talking about the energy bucket, I would say, okay, let's try some sound healing frequency. Let's see how that regulates your nervous system. Let's see if you jive with that. Let's see how meditation does with you. And usually for someone who doesn't meditate, the way that I kind of like to attack it would either be sound, which I find a lot of males are open to, and then the other one would be breath work, right? There are thousands of ways to meditate. So it's finding the best one that works for you. A lot of athletes, I like to start with like visualization and breath work and things like that. So that's kind of how I would attack it. Again, it's so a depends basis, but that would be like generic way that I kind of like would start that process.
No, I love the idea that even within the energy bucket or umbrella, if you want to call it, there's still always the subtext or the footnotes of you have other options because I'm totally that person. The idea of meditating, I understand the benefits, the neuroscience, I get it. For me, it's not it. And I don't feel bad about that anymore. Like I've come to peace with that. And I always tell people too, it's the idea of, I think you even talked about this idea of you should be doing something, right? Like where are we still shoulding all
Yes.
over our lives? And right. And it's like something that you have to be like, and I say this to people with food all the time. I'm like, if you're stressing out so much about this one thing, finding the gluten-free, vegan, paleo version of it, just I would argue that the stress is probably causing more damage than the actual thing
Yep.
itself. So there does have to be some level of assessment and discernment with that. But I am somebody who loves sound healing stuff. I love sound baths. I love frequencies. For me, it just also visualization and movement, like dance, things like that. Really, I just like it. So that's funny that you said that. I would love to hear your take because I am very into chakra stuff as well. And sometimes for people, they just see a poster in like their acupuncturist office and they're like, "Oh yeah, I get it. Purple. I got to do more for my crown." And what I'll get a purple rock, right? But what are maybe some easy wins or small things that people could do for even figuring out like what's up with my chakras? What's going on here? How can I balance them? Why should I even care? Is there a book you love? Is there a class? I know you offer some classes and things like that, but if somebody's like new into the chakra world and they're like, this sounds interesting, I feel like my energy, I'm trying. Sometimes people also are at the end of their health rope and they're like, I'll try anything right now. If a crystal's going to help, Dr. Wayne Dyer jokes about this. He's like, if a crystal helps, he's like, I'll get a stool made out of crystal, you know? So it's like, what can people do to kind of get into the chakra world a little bit more?
So okay, I would say Dr. Sue Morter is a good person to look into. And there's a book by Mark Rich called Energetic Anatomy. That's a really great book to look into. And then I host like classes and I have a program that goes through each of the chakra points. But that would be a starting point for someone to look into it. And again, I like to say it's like, can you even tune into your own energy and like how do we do that? And so that's where I would kind of lead people through that and try to help them to visualize and see kind of what their energy would look like. So now this is where, so these chakra points are connected to organs, emotions, seasons, body parts. So that's kind of how you can look at it from a logical perspective, I guess. And I would guide someone through, and let's just say, let's close down our eyes, let's take a couple deep breaths in, and I would guide them to the root chakra, right at that tailbone, through your, your thighs all the way down to your feet, visualizing this. A chakra is a wheel, so a moving wheel of red, and kind of trying to be able to feel it, to picture it, and then kind of asking, what's going on here? What am I feeling? Do I feel unsafe? Do I feel unstable? Do I have anxiety? Does it trigger me? Does a memory pop up? So that's kind of, and then we would go through each one. And again, it takes practice. It's literally like training a muscle. You go to the gym one time, you think you're going to have, a 6-pack abs or whatever, the body that you want overnight. It just doesn't work like that, not conceptually at least. And again, when it comes to energy and learning about the anatomy system and how that's connected, you have to go within. You have to close down your eyes, get quiet, get into a safe space, and start to just kind of even if you put your hands on your thighs and you close your eyes and you just feel into it, okay, what am I feeling in this area? And then also body pain comes into play. And Louise Hay is such a phenomenal person to look into, and her books on this as well. So, every disease has an energetic meaning. When someone comes to me and they're, I'm assessing them and we're going through this protocol, by them telling me what they, suffer from, their ailments, I already know their thought process. I already know what they're thinking. I know how they live their lives. I need to hear them, number one, validate themselves. And number two, how do we kind of digest that? And how do we, because they're at the end of their rope, they're like, what am I even doing at this point? And so it comes down to, what's the origin story? What has been holding you back for so long? And unwiring and then rewiring new daily habits, new ways of thinking, so that we can regulate that nervous system, because the nervous system is what is connected to the energy system.
Oh, girl, I joke all the time. Most of what I do is helping people unlearn things that no longer serve them. That is every holistic health practitioner's tagline, I think, for sure. I would love to hear you explain a little bit more about the different emotions with chakras, because I remember when I had Dr. Tina Yang on my podcast twice. She was my acupuncturist when I lived in California. Love her. Learned so much about acupuncture and meridians and all that from her. And I remember at the time, I think I shared this when she was on the episode on my podcast, where I was going to see her and I kept going and it was my throat chakra. And she was like, what are you not saying? And at the time I was going through a really bad breakup. I had moved across the country. There was a lot. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm this feisty Italian sassy girl. I'm loud. I've had people shush me. I'm always saying what I want to say. And she's like, no, Brianna, what are you not saying? What truth are you not speaking? And I was like, damn. Okay. So it was just really interesting that came up, and she explained that. So, and I know there's some theories about, obviously, sacral chakra and sexual energy and things like that. So could you maybe explain a little bit about that and kind of how that's connected?
Yeah. So, okay. If I have someone who comes to me and, they're coming to me for let's just say an energy healing of some sort. I'll ask them some questions, or if they're like, no, I don't want to talk, I just want to get into it, I'll have them lay on the table. And now, okay, this is where my intuitive gifts come into play of what I do. I lean into medical mediumship. So I have the ability where I can feel someone's emotions. I can literally get a picture of their inner body, and kind of by assessing that, and I'm also hands-on too, with integrative energy therapy. And I can kind of access these different points in the body that are holding rage and frustration, or, it just comes to me. I just feel that emotion. And so, for example, the liver. We love the liver. We love the liver. We're in the wood element. We're in springtime. I don't know about you, girl, but I have been freaking angry. I have had so much frustration, so much anger. And I'm like, okay, liver, I hear you talking to me. So that's an example of the organs that are holding it's basically like their prominent energy. So I know for me, when I went to go like see an acupuncturist as well, he's like, you are typical liver dominant. Like that's just you. You are a liver dominant person. And it makes sense because when we spoke last time, when you came on to my podcast and you were asking me my favorite like plant, and I was like, I love dandelion. Like I just love
Yeah.
bitters, and it makes sense because I'm a liver dominant person. So putting these
Yeah.
connecting points together. So that's kind of what I help people do. It's like, let's put the pieces of the puzzle together where you can easily digest this. And I give them examples and case studies and things like that. And again, it's knowing too, like you have to have, listen, 100% people are gifted, but I needed that anatomy, physiology, that logical learning and education for me to understand and even conceptualize how it connects to Eastern medicine and applying it in that metaphysical way. So you obviously know this. We have those 5 elements, which are connected to the seasons. In those seasons, it's connected to different meridians and channels in the body, which is connected to different organs, which is connected to different emotions. And with that, so each chakra system, right, it has all of that within it. So it's almost like you have to figure out what's going to be best way to live for your energy type and for your personality type, for your body type. Like that's if you take nothing away from this podcast episode, it's this only thing of knowing your energy type and knowing your energy body so well that you can be like, okay, like this is where I need to change my lifestyle according to that. Not taking all of the white noise that's out there, right? So it's like, yeah, acupuncture is freaking phenomenal, like up there for me, right? Some people are scared of needles. Okay, this is where Reiki could come in, where we're working on those energy points, these acupressure points, these meridians and channels without that. So that's like another um, easy way to shift over your thinking. It's like, okay, well, I'm not down for this, but I could do this. And like tuning forks, right? I freaking love using
Yes.
the tuning forks. So with
Yes.
that, there are so what I'll do, let's just say in an energy healing session, I combine, like I'll use different tools depending on the person and what they need in that moment, in that time. I'll take the tuning forks and I'll put it on certain parts of the body, of the energy system, based on what they need. That's it. I just tap in. I'm like, okay, now, for example, the nervous system, right? Let's just say if I get someone that has a lot of anxiety and just like overwhelm and they're very nervous system dominant in that fight or flight, I'm using the tuning forks near their ears because that immediately calms their nervous system down. So
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot that goes into it, and again, it's kind of like breaking it down for the people of like what's that first step. I think, again, like I said in the beginning, one of the first steps is like, okay, figuring out what do I actually need instead of trying to just change everything at once, and then go into, okay, like I'm down for Reiki. Like if you grew up like, I grew up Catholic family, so Reiki was like the devil. So, but I was the black sheep. I'm into it. It helped me. I feel better. It is what it is. Get over it. And so someone who's kind of unlearning that and
Mm-hmm.
trying to conceptualize that Reiki might be that first, or even sound healing, right? Might be that first access point. And then you go down the rabbit
Right.
hole.
Build upon it. No, I love that. I think I feel like a lot of people who are in this world, the holistic healing alternative health world, are very sensitive to energies and things like that. And I think as you get more comfortable with that, you stay around for a lesser amount of time to be like, I don't know why this feels off or this isn't resonating with me for whatever reason. But how has that affected, like, that's draining sometimes as well for relationships, whether it's romantic or platonic or friendships. Like, how does that affect you with as you've evolved and gotten deeper into it with like you're on a first date with somebody and they're like, you're now fiance, and he's like, are you like reading my energy right now? Or a friend where you're just like, your energy's off, I can't come, sorry. And if I had a friend who said that, I'd be like, girl, I don't even care. Like, let's cancel. It's fine. The energy's off. Like, I get it, but some people get so mad about it. How's that integrated into your
Oh
life?
man. I love this topic, by the way, and I know you love this topic too. Like relationships
I
are
do.
so key for me, and again, I grew up in a family where I'm oldest of five. We are all very close. We're tight. And number one, sometimes in those types of families, it could be a little overbearing. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
work on boundaries with my own family.
Mm-hmm.
Did I go about it the right way sometimes? Definitely not. But I learned, and I'm like, okay, again, I understand one of my brothers and how his energy type is. So I approach him in a different way than I would approach my other brother and my sister, my mom, my dad. Like, I understand that. And so, again, it's like people don't like to talk about this. When you go through an up level, a spiritual awakening, whatever you want to call it, you have a purge that happens. You
I was just talking to somebody about this.
you have
Yes.
a purge
The tarot moment where everything is
out of the
removed
way.
and
I'm going to
destroyed.
tell you right now. So, I'll get back to first date with my fiance soon, but I have going through the process of wedding planning and everything, and the energy is so strong right now as well astrologically. It's like major major purge, like old self really needs to die right now kind of purge. That means relationships will fall away, not forcing it, not fighting it, communicating will be amplified. And when you just have to know yourself so well that you can tap into your energy and be like, is this person for, like, listening to those vibes. Like, I know that, for example, there's someone in my close circle, right? That whenever I'm around their energy, it makes me want to projectile vomit. And, I have to remove myself from that situation. I don't care. I like it just has to be, because I can't continue to be around people like that. And so you really will understand this concept too when you don't have your health. I think that that's when a lot of people get smacked in the face with the reality of, like, you have to, it's like a goldfish, right? You're in If the goldfish is in the tank and the tank is dirty, the goldfish is going to get sick. Until you clean the tank, the goldfish can
Mm-hmm.
then thrive. You are the goldfish.
Mm-hmm.
Clean up your relationships,
Mm-hmm.
clean up your home, clean up your food, clean up the way you live your life. And energy, emotions are one of the highest toxic offenders to the body. Those low vibration emotions, at least. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you can go on one end of the spectrum, you can go on the other. It's just that process of, the unwiring, rewiring, and then integrating it. But you just have to be okay with the purge. Like, it happens like every season for me. So right now, 3 bridesmaids out. Like, we don't need, like, that's just what it is. I'm
Yes.
not going to force it. I'm not going to argue. I'm good. I don't really
Yes.
have this emotional charge anymore. I don't have the energy for it. And so being okay with that is most important.
I always say people are either batteries or they're
Mm-hmm.
vacuums. And people are either charging my life up or they're sucking the energy up. And I've recently gone through a lot of purges too with friends that I thought I would never either, like, and it's interesting too because people think that sometimes it has to be this big thing of this person did XYZ. Sometimes there's an underlying theme of betrayal, sure, but sometimes it's just like it feels like a pebble in your shoe where you're like every time I'm around this energy, it's becoming a liability to me. I feel energetically used. There's no reciprocity. I feel drained or whatever it is. And that's reason enough to be like, this isn't, the contract has ended. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just not interested in this relationship anymore. And people can't fathom that you're so okay with being like, yeah, so just because it was a relationship of convenience, or there's been a lot of years invested or whatever it is, you're like, it just isn't aligned with the life that I live now or my tank now. And wish you the best, but I'm no longer interested in participating in this.
So I want to talk about something because this is really important, and we're going to go, this is more in the woo woo space. So you
We love
mentioned
it.
contracts. We have
Yes.
contracts with people, places, like moments in time, like everything. And again, if you don't believe this, this is hard to, like, you would have to change your belief system, of course. However, for what I believe is we our souls, we have everything mapped out before we come into this lifetime, into this life form. You are a spiritual being living a human experience. And every relationship that we interact with is either a teachable moment for yourself or them, a lesson. And if you're continuing a pattern with something, situation, person, um, there's something going on within you that is not able to like learn that lesson. And we all have soul lessons that we need to learn here in this lifetime. And maybe let's just say, for example, you're just the easiest example I have off the top of my head, you're in a toxic relationship. You keep going back to that person. You guys have some type of tie where you need to shred up the contract, you need to learn that lesson with each other and then move on. And people are like, no, he's my soulmate. It's like, no, boo, he's your twin flame. And you guys are not, it's just not jiving anymore. Like, you need to learn your lesson. He needs to learn your lesson, whatever it may be. Move on. Let's take a step back. Let's do that inner healing work. And, you know, if you guys do that inner healing work and come back, okay, cool. If not, okay, cool. That's kind of how we have to look at that in a sense of a bigger picture. And I know it's like a big picture, but again, it's real stuff. And you know, it's part of just like this game we're living here on earth.
I love cutting energetic cords and then reclaiming
Mm,
your energy. I'm like all about that. So we could
I
get into a whole nother
know.
episode about that. But before I let people know, or you let people know where they can follow you and work with you and all of your, books and courses and all of that, I like to kind of always leave listeners with either a prompt or, if I think this is cool, you have conversations and you're like, yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while. Is there something recently that's either been coming up for you advice wise, whether that's career, life, love, that wish you could give your younger self, or you'd like to leave the listeners with, of like, this has been resonating really well with me, and would love to let people chew on that for a little bit.
Okay. So I would say, as of late, for me, a big theme is stepping into the most authentic version of myself and allowing things that are no longer serving me, right? Like, you're an entrepreneur, you understand this. Like, if things aren't working out in the business, then I need to continue on and just like allow and surrender like whatever is meant to work out. And a big thing for me was kind of, I guess you could say, cutting the cord with like cancer survivor, and just like that's like not an identity of me. That is an old part of me that no longer operates that way. And in turn, it's kind of opened up so many different doors in terms of what I do in business and how I also live my life. And really, you know, I don't want to say removing, transmuting that fear into like your passion. Like, how can you light a fire into your passion and live most authentically? And one of those ways is to reassess and ask yourself, what is not working? What is not working for me? And again, that you have to get quiet with yourself. What's not working for me? What is holding me back? What parts of myself am I, not incorporating into my life? And kind of reevaluate, reassess. And that's where I love journal prompts. They're so awesome. And just living with gratitude and just knowing that it's all going to be good. Like, universe got your back. So just live your life. It's your birthright to thrive. So
Oh, I love that.
figure out what is going to help you thrive. That's what I
I love that. Is that not like on some merch coming out? My brother always jokes, he's like, "Why are you pushing merch on everybody all the time?" But like, I'm like, that needs to be on a sweatshirt or a coffee mug for
I
sure.
am definitely going to do that now.
Yes. Oh my God. See, I love that. Let's do a collab
Let's do
merch
it. Oh my
together.
God. Awesome.
Um, well, this has been so fun. I appreciate all of your time. Gena, can you tell people where they can follow you? I'll put everything in the show notes, but just let people know where they can follow you, how they
For
can work
sure.
with you.
All right. So website, www.holistichumanperformance.co. You can find me on the gram at Gena Bradshaw. The spelling tricks people. It's GenaBshaw. You can find all the goodies there. And then, live workshops, courses. You can find my books, Amazon, and on the website. And I have also holistic products where I create essential oil infusions because I'm all about that holistic beauty and smelling really good. So, yeah, you can find all that stuff there.
Love that. Thank you so much. I'll see you
Bye.
soon.